Hello everyone, welcome to Tech Down Over. I'm Rick Zanotti and I'm joined today by Harold Muliadi, and we are going to be talking about our first impressions and some of the shots we've taken with the Canon EOS R. Full frame mirrorless camera. Here we go. And we are back. Geoff Blanchard's not with us today. He is probably just waking up and getting ready to go to work in Melbourne, Australia. So, Harold, we got the EOS R last Friday.
Yeah.
It came in. We bought it out of our own hard-earned money. And so that is now ours. We didn't buy any of the new lenses yet. We have a lot of the Canon EF and EFS lenses, plus Sigma, and some Tamron. So we decided we have enough lenses for the moment. We did buy the $99 converter, and it does a great job. It keeps up on video, and it takes beautiful pictures. So haven't had an issue. Most of the shots we've been taking have been with the Canon 10 to 18 millimeter EFS lens. That's a pretty nice lens, even though it's like f4.5 to 5.6. So it's not a fast lens, but it looks good. You'll see some of the pictures we took with that. We also use the Sigma 50 millimeter lens, which is an art lens, beautiful lens. And we shot with the Canon EF 35 millimeter f2.0.
Which is what's on here right now.
And it's what we're looking at right now. So that's it. Now, from a feel point of view, it feels, I'd say, a little bit heavier than, let's say, a GH5.
Yeah, I mean,
we don't have the battery grip yet. That's coming out, I think, tomorrow.
Yeah, we usually use battery grips, so it's a little bit hard to judge at the moment because we're kind of comparing it to the feel of other cameras with the battery grip. But once we get that, we'll...
But it has a nice heft to it. It's not too light, not too heavy. It feels good. It doesn't feel like you're going to drop it, or it just feels nice in the hand, ergonomically pleasing. Typical Canon type feel to it. Pretty good grip. It's deep enough for the bigger hands like mine, and it has, the buttons are fairly well laid out. As we're discovering, some of the buttons or options are a little weird. For example, if you're used to shooting on a Canon DSLR, or for that matter, a Panasonic GH5, G9, they have the same basic button layout on the G9, GH5 as you do on a Canon full-frame camera. So that way, if you're transitioning, it's very easy to find your ISO and everything else. The problem is here, there's no dedicated ISO button. You have some little weird buttons that tell you that you've locked something or that you're showing a pretty illegible top screen. There's a little screen at the top which shows you your mode you're in, and it's unreadable. At least it's not easily readable indoors. If you go outside, it's a little more readable. You can invert it, so now you have an inverted unreadable screen. So
see, here is the screen that we are talking about. As you can see, it's being basically, the image is basically being destroyed by glare right now.
Yeah.
So,
but believe me, without glare, you can't see it anyway.
You can invert it, but that doesn't actually help that much. Actually, you can see it easier here, but in general use, it's kind of hard to see.
Yeah, that's because there's a light source on it. Without the light source, it's pretty unreadable. So I would have thrown that whole thing away, just trash it, and put a dial there for ISO or something else, a mode dial, because there is a dial button. So if you click that button on the top, can you show that button? Do you have it there? There's a little mode button, not a dial, and that brings up
there
mode
is this
on the screen.
Mode button instead of the dial. I'm showing you the button now, and let me show you what it looks like when you push it. You push it, and it brings up this.
Right. So instead of doing it in one action, you've got to do it in two, at least. But let's say you want to go to video mode. Now you have to click the lower left. I'm not sure you can do right now.
This is another thing, is that as far as we can tell so far, there are certain things that you can only do with the touch screen, which doesn't really function when you've got it hooked up to an HDMI as an output to another HDMI, like a monitor or
Yeah.
something like that. So if you were using, say, an external monitor, we may not have found the setting yet to have it do both, but basically, right now it's turned off the screen, and
Yeah, now if you know how to do that, or if you've seen that in the menus, how to get the screen to work when you are exporting or actually outputting to HDMI, let us know, because we haven't found it yet, and it was a little confusing on that one. That was a little shocking too, because all of a sudden our video monitor is kind of useless.
so basically right now we're just seeing this black screen, and I can tap stuff on here, but it's not actually doing anything. So it seems to be just totally turned off the screen, both the display and the touchscreen aspect of it.
And you have to use your up, down, left, right arrows in order to get it to navigate, right?
You can use that for some of the navigation, but there are certain things, like certain elements on there that you have to touch, and which you can't seem to get through to just with these cursor keys.
Yeah. Well, actually, sometimes the cursor key has a label on it. Like in the mode dial, I think it had a label too, which was another button. So if you go back to that mode dial, now
Well,
I think that bottom one has, let's see. Yeah, it's the white part is the button, I think.
yeah, but
So if there's a button there that corresponds to that,
okay, let's see. It says info, so
so you press the info button, you're back.
that's odd. So I pushed it,
Oh,
and
wait,
it
that didn't do it.
It turned on the menu screen on the camera, but now it's putting
So now
out
can
HDMI.
you touch it?
Now I can touch it, yes, but you can't see it there.
So now, and then if he goes back now and outputs so you hit M4 again, I guess.
So right now we're on video mode manual. Okay, so that works.
Yeah,
Oh, looks like we
interesting.
discovered it live on air.
Yeah. And you were there with us. Congratulations.
And right now you're seeing vMix, our video switching software.
All right, so if we get back to the camera, there was one thing that came by default. At least I think it did. I don't know if I pressed the button that maybe made it happen. It was totally by accident. But there's a focus mode. It's shutter focus. It basically, you focus and then it makes the screen tap a shutter release, which is good, but I don't like it because you're moving the camera, you're touching the camera on the back screen and taking the picture at the same time. It can come in handy, but not something we do normally. We'd rather use the shutter. And there was a way to turn that one off, I think.
Yes, and it was right here.
Now, we're not seeing the screen.
Yeah, so it
There we go.
was... Oh, well, it's not going to show up because we're in video mode, I guess, but...
Oh, so let's switch back out of
Yeah.
video mode.
So, what we need to
So
do
we
is,
press the
I'm going to
mode
push that
button.
mode button again on the top.
And now we're going to go to manual.
And so now in here, we have this thing called touch shutter. And it's a pretty sensitive touch shutter.
Oh, yeah.
We were just testing it out. We were accidentally taking pictures quite a lot. So that there it's enabled and there it's disabled. And, if you have one of these cameras, now you know where this is.
Yep.
It's, I believe other Canon cameras have this feature. I'm not sure if they put it in the same part of the menu. Like I think the some of the Rebels and
Mhm.
I think the 60D had it. I don't remember.
Very possible. 70D might have had it.
Yeah.
I've seen it in some other cameras. It's an interesting feature. Not one of my favorites, but it's okay.
Yeah, I always thought it was... its only purpose to me seemed to be to accidentally take pictures. I don't know. I don't see there being any problem with the shutter button.
Now, there's one other thing that's sort of a pain. Once you start getting the hang of it, it works better, and that's the multifunction bar. You've heard a lot of people complaining, I hate the multifunction bar. It sucks. It's not that bad.
It's okay. It takes some getting used to.
Tricky, and it doesn't always respond when you want it to. So I would assume if it's a cold day outside and you're trying to touch it, it may not respond to you. It's not responding sometimes here while we're doing it. So, okay, he's touching it right now. And it's pretty much where your thumb goes. So, for example, if you're holding the grip
Yeah, if you're holding the grip, then your thumb would be right here.
Will go all the way across to the left, and it has 3 buttons, basically, or touch areas. The left, the middle, and the right.
Yeah, and I will show you how that looks in the menu where, let's see, you can sort of bind the functionality of swiping, left tap, and right tap separately.
Yeah.
Over here. Right now, we just have them all set to ISO because it's kind of, you might just accidentally do one of the other things
Right.
if you have different binds for each of these.
So, for example, on the ISO, on the top one, that's to turn it on and swipe. The second one, which you need to turn the top one on first, the second one, if you tap it, goes up. And the third one, if you tap it, goes up. So I think I have 2 of them duplicated. At least it seemed that way, right?
I think we had it so left goes down on ISO and right goes up.
Oh, it did? It was doing
when
up
we're
for
tapping.
both on me. I'm not sure why.
But yeah, that is an important point though, that to use to use the bar here, you have to hold down on it first, and here you can see this sort of like little progress bar thing. Let's see. There, when it says on, then you're actually able to use it, and
if you're
So it
taking
goes off.
shots quickly, it may fail you.
yeah, it's a little bit
Clunky.
yeah, a little bit clunky. I guess it's a new feature. Right now, as you see, I turned it on and I am swiping it right and left, and I can also tap right, tap left. And, you know, once it's on, it actually works pretty well. The thing I do think about this, though, is I wish that they let you set this to so that you could use the bar to navigate menus, because, you know, one thing we don't have on this camera anymore is, which, you know, I think you've probably heard because everybody's talking about it, is you don't have the wheel anymore. You have these cursor buttons instead. So like where your set
So
button is.
was inside the wheel, but not the wheel itself.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah. Leave the wheel. Put it back in. Like
Yeah.
now, can we all send them back in and put the wheel back in?
There's no reason for the wheel to be missing.
No.
They added
No.
this bar, but it's in a totally different place. It doesn't matter.
Right. And there's no
We all like the wheel.
joystick. I much would rather have a joystick than using the wheel, which is slow. So get rid of the multifunction bar, put in the joystick, put in an ISO button on top and your white balance button on top. And I'd say you have the next version of this camera, which will cost more. What
And
do
the
you
other
think?
thing is, with regard to the joystick, there's totally space here to put the joystick. They didn't have to,
No.
take it out to save space or anything.
No, because they took out a button or 2
Yeah.
that used to be in that area.
And also, the other thing where you could put buttons is, what about this little screen here? This little screen on the top, it's a waste. As you hear us say a lot, it's
it's
just
a waste.
extraneous.
It's just like the Panasonic G9. Get rid of that stupid screen. If you're coming from a DSLR and you want to feel at home, stay on your DSLR. We don't need you.
Well, because you
I
can
mean,
see
it's
all
just such a waste.
you can see all that info on your electronic viewfinder and on your screen. So
Yeah.
there's just
It's just a waste. It's an extra place to drain battery for no reason.
which I mean, this
Enough
one's pretty
said.
dim, so maybe they're saving battery on it. I don't know.
Well, yeah. So it's so dim, most people can't read it. So again, why? Why? Existential question. Now, don't get us wrong. I don't. Harold hasn't played with it at that much yet, but I love this camera. I shot for 2.5 days, pretty straight. It took about 200 and something shots, and it was fun. It actually worked well, short of ISO. It took me a while to figure out how to set up the ISO correctly on the multifunction bar. Once I got it, it worked sort of, but it wasn't working as nicely as I wanted. And then Harold said, "Oh, you don't have to swipe on. You can tap it."
But you do still have to hold down on it to turn it on.
Turn it on, an extra
Which is
step.
I don't know. It's a little less immediate. So.
Right. And when you're in the middle of shooting something quickly, which may be gone in a second or two, you've lost the shot. So that's something to think, keep in mind. You may lose shots because it's a little bit slow. The camera feels good. Ergonomically, it's not bad at all. The
Oh, yeah.
screen's good. Just some things are a little funky.
And as far as size and heft, I mean, you can see the size here, but I would say it's definitely not as small as, say, the you might think of comparisons to, say, the M5 and M50 since they're also mirrorless, but it's larger and a bit beefier than those.
This is bigger than an 80D.
Yeah, bigger than an 80D, a little smaller than a 5D Mark IV, I guess.
So it's a good size.
Yeah.
And I can't wait for the battery grip because that'll give it a little more heft and a little more balance.
So should we start looking at the pictures
Here's some
that
pictures
we took? Oops.
These are mostly taken in and around my home.
So here's a sky
Those
shot.
are clouds. Yep.
And this one was actually taken with ISO 10,000. Like we took it at Rick took it at some different ISO values, so you can kind of see like how it handles higher and lower ISOs as far as noise goes. Here, it's 10,000. We're not really seeing much noise here. I can zoom right in.
And by the way, the camera at that point was on auto ISO on this one, because I probably wouldn't have gone to 10,000 on it, but I think that's where the camera was.
And let's see. Let's go to the next one. This one's a little dark, but we let's see. This is actually at a pretty high ISO setting. It's 12,800. Here we are starting to see some grain and stuff here, but that's still pretty good.
What happened is this was totally silhouetted. So as a result, the only way to we had to lower, or actually raise the shutter so it wouldn't be so bright, and then raise the ISO to get some of the brightness back so we could even see that, because it was pretty much dark to the eye with the sun in your eyes.
Yeah, so at this point, even though we're getting grain in the actual, in person, when Rick was there, it was pretty much dark. So
yeah, you couldn't see it.
It's actually doing pretty well in terms of low light. And this next one's another shot of the sky. This one, I think ISO 6400. This one is, we have some plants and a rock and so on. This one was another ISO 12,000.
You notice this is typical Canon color space and texturing. It has a nice texture to it. The pictures do come out pretty. They've always had good color on Canon, and nothing's changed on this mirrorless camera. It still has very, very good color. And I was in auto white balance the whole time. We never ever white balance this. We let the camera just do it.
And as you can see, as usual with Canon, it keeps the greens nice and green, and it keeps the soil and stuff nice and brown. It doesn't end up, washing everything a certain color.
No, and if you're wondering why the soil doesn't look very, very green, it's because we've had drought here in California for a long time, and they give you big penalties if you water too much and try to bring your lawn back. So we're doing it slowly.
And here is a light shining. There's a bit of a reflection here on the ceiling. I think this one was also 12,800 ISO.
And that's a pretty dark room. Those lights were at their minimums, and that's my office at home. I've got 3 of those lights in that office, and I keep them pretty dim when I'm doing work on the computer or watching TV in there. And but notice the lines on the light, like the little sideline where the light's coming through, they're sharp. Those lines are pretty sharp. And this is all handheld. Every shot you're looking at today is all handheld. It does a pretty good job for a camera that doesn't have IBIS, or in-body image stabilization. The lens did. Well, actually, this lens probably didn't. I think this, I'm not sure which one it was. It may have been stabilized. The 50D, the Sigma 50 is not stabilized, and that may be what I shot that with. Not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It didn't take down which lens, at least not in the info I'm looking at here. This is another shot from the same place, different angle.
This looks totally white now. I'm seeing something totally white.
Oh, maybe, are you seeing?
There you go. Now you're back to the shot.
All right, and next we've
That was
got,
one of the other lights facing the other way.
Yeah.
Now this is...
Yeah, this is another scene from out there with that mailbox and the plants and stuff.
Oh, got a white screen again.
This one is... Huh, I'm not sure. I'm not actually doing anything here, so I don't know why it's
showing
giving
in
me-
half white. It's like it's overlaid by something. There it goes, one away.
Huh. All right. This one's got lower ISO. This was, I think, 320. Let's see if we... And, let's see. Here we've got a window, so
Now that's the window that you saw earlier
you can
that
see
was
that
totally
there are
dark.
these lines here that are pretty clear.
And actually, the little entry door chandelier is actually slightly blurred.
Yep.
Focus was definitely on the window.
Yeah, let me zoom in again on the lines there.
And again, all handheld, pretty sharp. It doesn't do a bad job at all.
And this is from the other side. This is from outside that same window.
Mm-hmm.
This one came out pretty good.
Probably
too,
around
I
the same
think.
time.
Yeah. We can see this, texture on the wall over here
The
pretty
stucco.
clearly.
Yep.
A chimney on the roof.
Looking for Santa.
Yeah, we're looking for Santa right here.
It's an extra wide roof just in case. Chimney. Now again, I'm taking that shot from about 50, 60 feet away, handheld. It was sort of windy, and this was probably with the 50... No, this is the 24 to 105 Canon EF lens, and I think it's a 4.0 lens. It's not too bad. You can see the stucco on everything. The details aren't bad, especially with the glare behind it. It's still got good details.
Yeah.
Because it was definitely glary.
Yeah, I mean, you can see on this camera, which, it kind of reminds me of the other one that did it pretty well were those Sonys, where when you have really bright light behind something, then you actually don't get that much of a... You don't get that much bleed over, or sometimes you get kind of less contrast or whatever in your subject. But this one, it does it pretty good.
Yeah, and it was bright. That glare was bright.
Mm-hmm. Let's see.
Now that's a patio, and the wood tones are actually pretty good. If you can zoom in on the wood over there, you'll probably see the grain on it. Didn't do a bad job over there either. And again, handheld.
Yeah, let's see. And we have, here is it's just a chandelier inside.
Yeah, again, that was pretty bright. What was my speed on this one? Like 1,000, 1,200?
I think it was, the ISO was like 12,800 on this
12,800. What was the shutter?
The shutter was really fast. That's what it was.
And because if you look at it the way it was...
See, I think it's going to, if I check it...
And I think my ISO was by accident because I probably wasn't getting that thing to work too well, the bar.
That's what it was. It was, so this one was, the ISO was 1250, and then the
1250.
Shutter speed was 3200.
Yep.
Because you were trying to expose for this light.
Mm-hmm. I was trying to get so you could see the light, the lamp inside, because without that, it was just completely white in there. You couldn't see anything, or yellowish.
And here's some more lights. All right, and just an indoor shot.
And if you notice the light under the little crossover,
yeah, let me see if I can.
That was pretty sharp. And some of the cameras have problems with that little light. I know the Panasonic, depending on the lenses, tends to flare it open and shut. I never once got that during taking shots on this, where when you click to focus, it expands and contracts the light. That I mostly get on Panasonics. And on this one, no, didn't do that at all. I just shot it almost perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, these don't really tend to, it doesn't really tend to focus hunt, right? As far as we've been able to
it's not going
tell.
in and out.
Nope.
And that could be the depth from defocus.
Yeah, which
works well for photos, but occasionally with light sources can get confused.
Mm-hmm. It's just an office shot. And then I think we got another one here. You can see, well, you know, this is a full frame camera, so you can see this pretty intense bokeh here.
And the glory of my messy desk.
Well, it's now organized.
It's an organized mess. Ah, yes.
And right here in the studio, this is basically of where I am sitting now.
And that's with the darkness we have in here right now. There are lights lighting up the green screen,
Well,
but it's not that.
To be fair, when all of our lights are on in here, it's actually not that
it's
dark.
actually pretty bright right now. Yeah, we have everything on right now.
Sometimes we have
But
all
I
of
was
our...
shooting in a dark area because I'm looking at the controls.
Yeah.
They're not really that well lit. What
Although-
you're seeing with the yellowish lights or the goldish lights, those are the preamps.
Yeah,
for
those
the
are our
microphones.
preamps. Oops. And it autoplayed. Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
the last picture, right?
Those are our preamps, yeah.
So that kind of gives you an idea of some of the stuff that we've been taking. We haven't really put it through all its paces yet. Focus is a little weird in terms of setting the focus because, again, you have to press a button, then go searching for it. It's a little not totally intuitive. So I've seen it better on different Canons, and even on the Panasonic, you press a button, then you just quickly go through the choices. Here, the choices are less obvious.
The other thing about this one was, yeah, speaking of focus, you know, when you want to change the focus mode, then, well, you know, first you push the focus button here, which is kind of on the right edge here. But once you push that, then let me show you what happens. You get this where you have more things that you have to push. Let's see, right now I have to push the
Screen.
Let's see, MFN button, which
We can't.
is
We're only seeing the camera.
here. Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were showing the menu.
Well, this is the menu to change the focus mode.
Yeah.
So there's kind of like there are
there
a
it is.
few
Yep.
a few button presses just to get into the focus mode, which I don't know. I think it's kind of better if you just, you know, one click of the button and then you choose your mode.
Yeah, this one requires like 2, right?
Yep. Well, let me run through that again. So that was, oops. So you push that focus mode button, and then you have to push.
Then you have to push the other one to activate it.
This other one, which is
But there is a key you could press on that, right? What is the
there
key?
is, yeah.
What's that key?
It's the M function button, which is sort of on the. It's actually right next to the shutter.
So if you do that, what happens?
Then it brings up your focus modes.
So you've got to do 2 clicks with different fingers, right?
Yep. Yeah, well, I mean, you know, it's one with your thumb, one with your index.
Yeah.
So it's not too bad, but
Yeah,
I
it's
just
almost,
think
that's very Nikon-like, where you have to do a lot of double key combinations, which is a pain.
I just think, you know, there's a few things on this camera where it's
A little counterintuitive.
functions are, well, not necessarily just counterintuitive, but kind of less immediate,
Mm-hmm.
where you have 2 button presses to do something when you should just have one, kind of thing. Which, I mean, I guess you could chalk up to this is kind of a new layout for their buttons and their interface and all that, so they're kind of ironing it out, as it were. But it seems like some of these things seem like they should be obvious. I mean, you know, people want a simple interface that's easy to use and
Mhm.
intuitive.
Now, it's not bad. It's just a little more than what you're used to if you're already a photographer or a videographer. It requires a little more pressing than maybe you want to do. What do you think?
I think so. And, you know, the other thing is I think a lot of these things are things that if people wanted it enough, then they could change it in firmware. And while
Yeah.
Canon is not known for, fixing stuff in firmware. They are saying that they're going to release, firmware updates for this thing relatively soon. I forget exactly when they said they're going to do
Canon timeframe,
it.
that could be 2028.
Yeah.
But we will find out soon, because we have the XF405, and that took, 8 months to come up with the firmware that they announced right at the beginning.
Yep.
So, God, don't take 8 months. Do it quick, please. It shouldn't take that long.
Yeah, this is a Canon camera, so if they release it in 2028, there's probably still going to be people using the thing.
Yeah, by the way, Canon, we're kidding you, but really, come on. We love the Canon. We wouldn't buy it if we didn't love Canon. But, we love other cameras too, but Canon is special. We've used it a lot. Harold owns the 5DSR.
And, we should probably, I should probably bring that in, and, we could do a
little comparison
at some point. Which, they're kind of different classes of camera, I guess, but I think they're close enough to... But
Canon controls have always been very, very similar. Even on the small ones, they're similar. And on this one, they radically went a little different, not necessarily for the better. I think they were trying to prove that they could, quote-unquote, innovate, because everybody blasted them for not innovating. They've been innovating forever. People forget that they do innovate. They also wait. And by waiting, they usually come out with better stuff than other people because they do wait. Now, this does have an articulating screen, which is absolutely great. It has nice functionality. It's got pretty high ISO. I think it goes up to 50,000 on extended ISO, if I'm not wrong.
I actually haven't checked on this one. But
I believe it's 50,000. I may believe totally wrong.
Let's see. Let's use the little bar thing here.
So here we go.
And see on, and I'll just keep tapping till next Tuesday.
Yep.
So it goes up to 40,000.
40,000. Okay.
Which I think is...
No, we can still go further, can it?
No. It stops up at 40,000.
40, okay. Sometimes they haven't extended, but I guess this one's 40. 40 is a lot.
Actually, did you enable extended? Maybe.
No, I didn't. I didn't.
So maybe there still is a...
There may
still be an extended...
But wait, there's more.
Yeah.
So, on the whole, great camera. I'd say it's really a great camera. I'm waiting for the battery grip. That'll make a big difference. It takes good video. It takes very good photos. And it's fairly easy to use. Some things slow you down a little bit. And we'll see what happens with a firmware update to see if they clean some of that up. But on the whole, I'd say it's a good camera. You can reassign buttons, too. So if you want to do things a little bit differently, you can. For example, the top dial is your shutter. The back dial is your aperture. That's very different from normal Canons where the aperture is on your ring, which is no longer here. It moved away. So little things like that you can change. You have no ring, though, unfortunately. You have some useless things like some sort of output display at the top, which is really hard to read unless you're outdoors. And again, pretty useless. That's a lot of space. You could have put a dial in. It would have been much, much more appreciated. You've got the multifunction bar. Jury's still out. It does work, but it's a little clunky. So we'll see. All of that can probably be fixed by some firmware updates to make things easier. Now, I kind of like the multifunction bar idea.
I think it has potential.
Yeah, I just think it's either too sensitive right now or too insensitive. It's both. Because once you turn it on, it's pretty sensitive. To get it on doesn't always work, especially if your fingers are, fairly large thumb. I mean, not large, but large. So to get my thumb over that, it's easy for me to go over the bar just a tad. So when I press down, if I'm a little too far left, it doesn't do anything. There's no tactile response either, and they're not going to fix that on this camera. They would have to fix it on future ones.
And again, I don't think there's any reason that the bar can't exist alongside, a joystick and
it can coexist as an alien life form. Yes. Where did they get this idea? I don't know. I know where they got it. Apple?
I mean,
they have don't they have a multifunction?
I believe so. Yes, they have them on their
iMac, on on the MacBook Pro.
The MacBooks, yeah.
And people I know don't like it.
It's
yeah, different.
I don't know.
But anyway, well, I guess that's a quick. We've been on for like 40 minutes. It's a not so quick roundup of some of what we're finding as first impressions, some of what we like, some of what we don't like. But on the whole, I think this is a camera you can easily fall in love with.
I think so.
It's not the prettiest camera, but it's very loyal. Yeah, right.
And like I said, it's being a Canon, there's going to be people using this thing for a long time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it does have that Canon construction and build. I have a feeling if we dropped it, we're not going to do a drop test, but I have a feeling if we dropped it, it would probably survive. I would say it's strong and solid like all the typical Canons. So they didn't skimp on the magnesium alloy body or anything else. Still runs really well. If you are filming with this, we're not shooting a video in 4K yet. We've been shooting in 1080p. The crop factor on 4K is about 1.8. It's big. On 1080p, there's no crop factor. The lens, like a 10 to 18 millimeter, that's a good one to have if you're going to shoot in 4K because it still gives you a wide enough field of view so that you can shoot nicely without losing everything and having everything be a close-up of your face, which if you're gorgeous is fine. If you're me, I'm sorry.
And I believe didn't you say that the crop factor was slightly different on the EFS lenses like that 10 to 18?
No, it's between 1.7 and 1.8.
Okay. But yeah, being a 10 to 18, then obviously it's going to be a...
And that's an EFS lens. It's an EFS STM. It runs beautifully.
Mm-hmm.
So, fun camera. If you have any questions, please put them down in the notes section below or the comment section, and we will try to get back to everyone as soon as possible. And if you have any comments also on anything we've said or anything we've said wrong, or you love us, you hate us, whatever, you can put that down on the comments as well. Please subscribe. We don't ask people to subscribe enough. We need subscribers because we're lonely. And I think we need to get to 1,000 subscribers because we don't have that. We used to have more than that in Vimeo, but since we've moved over to YouTube about 3-4 years ago, YouTube doesn't really count views as much. And so we need more subscribers because we get tons of views on LinkedIn and other places, but not on YouTube, believe it or not. They don't count embeds the same way. No advertising. So anyway, we will see you guys. Do you have any final comments, Harold?
No, that's about it. Just keep an eye out for our comparison. We're probably going to do a comparison on 5DSR versus the EOS R here.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. And we'll probably compare the EOS R to like the Panasonic GH5, or better yet, the G9. It's probably more like the G9. So we'll see you next time on Tech Down Over. This week, on Friday, we've got Westcott back on. That should be
we've got Pete Fox.
Pete Fox, he's great. He's been on before. They always have great products. We love Westcott. Have a good one, everyone. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.